Slipping through the net, tens of thousands of Britons have committed crimes abroad, but nothing has been put on their records here in the UK. Murderers and sex offenders are amongst them. Their crimes would not have shown up on criminal record checks. Tonight, chaos at the Home Office, a department apparently still not fit for purpose. The government admitted officials knew about more than 27,000 offenders but did not enter them on the police computer or the sex offenders register. It means paedophiles convicted abroad could be working with children. Also tonight, target Al-Qaeda, dozens are killed as America launches airstrikes in Africa. Leave her alone, Prince William pleads with the paparazzi to stop hounding his girlfriend. But what chance?
What do you say to people who say you're parasites? I agree with them.
And it's goals galore at Anfield, but find out who came out on top in the 9-goal Carling Cup thriller.
And the top story on UTV tonight, a tribute to the PUP leader David Irvine at the Oval tonight is marred by booing.
Good evening. Some of the Home Office's harsher critics might call it business as usual. Another disturbing blunder, more convicted criminals unchecked and unrecorded, and real fears about public safety. Today, MPs were told that the records of 27,000 crimes committed by Britons abroad were left in box files when they should have been entered in the Police National Computer or the Sex Offenders Register. So a convicted rapist or paedophile could be working with children. A convicted murderer could be treated by the police or the courts as a first-time offender. How could this have happened? Our political editor Tom Bradby is at the Home Office tonight. Tom.
James, I think what is staggering people here at Westminster tonight is that these documents, these box files, were clearly sitting in someone's office. And the question is why that someone wouldn't have wanted to be absolutely sure that rapists and paedophiles and murderers were on all the right databases. Apparently, though, that wasn't the case. And it adds up to one huge headache for John Reid.
This feels so eerily familiar, it's like a bad dream. Mind-boggling incompetence at the Home Office, a minister on the rack. You'd have thought after the furore last time it'd be completely unthinkable for a sex offender to get a job in a school, but apparently not. Despite all the assurances, promises and pledges, it might still be possible. And here's why. Imagine someone committed a sex offence in, let's say, Germany. He'll have served his sentence there. But on his release and return to Britain, details of his convictions would not have been entered into the Police National Computer or other relevant databases. Why not? Because his file, like others, would simply have been left forgotten on a Home Office desk. Yes, forgotten. Any check or search made on this man would have returned no trace. It turns out that in total more than 27,000 documents were left lying around. They included files on 25 rapists, none of whom had been subject to the sex offenders register, 29 paedophiles, 5 murderers, 9 people convicted of attempted murder and 29 robbers. When he started at the Home Office, John Reid made this admission.
Our system is not fit for purpose.
He said he'd sort it out, but the same month he made that pledge, this problem had come to light in his department, and yet he did not know about it until today. He had to be scraped off the ceiling when he heard, and his friends say it's not his fault.
In this case, the Home Office has actually identified a problem without having to be told about it, without it being all over the press, and it started to deal with it. And at least now that it's come into the public domain, we can have some confidence that the problem is being effectively tackled.
But you wouldn't expect the opposition to agree with that.
Well, frankly, if he doesn't know that 27,500 documents have been left awry, when ACPO's been told, when action has been taken, but nobody's mentioned to him, you have to wonder how he runs the department.
When John Reid started at the Home Office, he said there would be difficult days when scandals came out of nowhere. This is certainly such a day, and he's likely to push his staff hard until he knows for sure that none of the offenders in the forgotten files are working in sensitive positions.
Well, Tom, John Reid promised to fix the Home Office. It's not going well, is it?
Well, it's certainly not tonight. It isn't going well, that's for sure. And I'll get to the broader points in just a moment. But first, John Reid has just arrived home and he had this to say.
Well, this is a very serious problem, and I take it very seriously indeed. That's why I've called in the police and the Criminal Records Bureau tomorrow morning for an urgent meeting, and I want to establish the facts and satisfy myself that everything has been done to protect the public.
Now, what John Reid has obviously got to find out tonight and tomorrow, and I'm pretty sure he'll be pushing the Home Office staff to be certain of this, is that the serious offenders that we've been talking about tonight, the rapists, the paedophiles and all the rest of it, aren't in sensitive positions. As we've said, it seems quite incredible that we could be here talking about this again after all that's happened, but we are, and he knows that his career is really going to be under threat if he can't conquer it very quickly. As to the broader issues about the Home Office, I think it is fair to say that it was really a complete mess, or certainly seemed to be when John Reid took over. He's gone through there like a hurricane. I think the sense at Westminster is that he has been doing a reasonable job, and that this won't necessarily affect his political career unless it goes on too much longer and he doesn't quickly get on top of it, and then it most certainly will.
Tom, thank you. There is more still to come on the ITV News tonight, including an exclusive report from a Shia hospital in Baghdad as the doctors there struggle to cope with the continuing violence, and a dramatic day on the oil markets as prices fall. But what does it mean for us? But first, a significant escalation in America's so-called war on terror, as for the first time since 9/11, their warplanes struck targets in Africa. Washington says its attacks against Islamic militants in Somalia were aimed at 3 senior al-Qaeda figures involved in blowing up US embassies in Kenya and Tanzania 9 years ago. It claims to have killed one of them, but it's not sure which one. Civilians are also reported dead, as Neil Connery now reports.
America's military might is back in action in Somalia for the first time in 13 years. An AC-130 plane, a heavily armed gunship, struck in 2 sites in the south of the country. The US military says it was targeting an al-Qaeda cell. And this is one of those they say they had in their sights, Fazl Abdullah Mohammed, one of the FBI's most wanted as a key al-Qaeda leader in Africa. He is the suspected mastermind of the US embassy bombings in Kenya and Tanzania in 1998, but America's involvement in Somalia stretches back much further. December 1992, and America sends 28,000 troops into the country as part of a UN military effort to quell Somalia's wartime famine. A year later, 18 US Army Rangers were killed when 2 helicopters were shot down by militias. The Americans suspected al-Qaeda training. The event was famously dramatized in the movie Black Hawk Down. They soon pulled out. 1998, and truck bombs at US embassies in Kenya and Tanzania killed 224 people. Al-Qaeda is suspected. Anti-US support grows and Islamic militants take over the capital, Mogadishu. Ethiopian and Somali government forces regained the capital by the end of last year, and now America launches airstrikes in the south.
It's also a confirmation of the American view that members of the deposed Islamist regime in Mogadishu were actually sheltering individuals linked to al-Qaeda, and in fact they claim that several of the people who were killed earlier today were active members of al-Qaeda.
The last time US forces intervened in Somalia in the early 90s, it ended disastrously. This time they'll be hoping these targeted strikes will achieve their goal. Neil Connery, ITV News.
Well, a little earlier I spoke to ITN's Nima El Bagir, who's in the Somali capital, Mogadishu, and I asked her what the reaction has been there today.
People are very angry, and what's interesting is that it's actually culminating in growing support for the Islamic court. People who wouldn't necessarily have politically aligned themselves with the ICU are saying, well, you know, they're turning us into another Iraq. Maybe we need to fight alongside the Islamic court. An illustration of this is the fact that an AK-47 automatic rifle today in Mogadishu weapons market is selling for $300. But when you take into account the fact that the average Somali income is $250 a year, there's a lot of tension in the streets of Mogadishu.
There have been a significant number of casualties from this bombing. Do we have any indication yet who was killed and whether they were who the Americans say they were?
We have not managed to confirm any numbers from the Somali government, but an indication of the level of the death toll is that actually 2 villages were hit. and the Somali government is saying that it could be in the hundreds. So this was quite a widespread strike. This was not just one limited strike by the American Air Force.
Does it look as if they're embarking on another expansion of their war on terror?
Yes, although the problem is that for the people in Mogadishu and the people in Somalia, what is being perceived as is a propping up of a very weak interim government, and that can only feed in to the support for the Islamic court. The risk they're taking is a return to civil war in Somalia.
Very worrying indeed. Nima, thank you very much for talking to us. It can't have been much of a way to spend her 25th birthday pursued by the paparazzi, but for Kate Middleton, Prince William's girlfriend, it's not just today, it is every day. The Prince has pleaded for the harassment to stop, and one newspaper group has today said it won't print any more paparazzi photos of her. Our royal correspondent Romilly Weeks reports.
It's a stark introduction to royal life, and Kate's not even that yet. There are uncomfortable echoes of what Diana went through before her. Is Kate Middleton now being hounded to satisfy our desire for the next shot? Well, this is the daunting sight that Kate faced this morning. 40 photographers and camera crews there like us for her 25th birthday. And then the paparazzi, who are nearly always there.
What do you say to people who say you're parasites?
I agree with them. We can't have this sort of situation on a daily basis. Well, I don't think it will be, though. I think today is exceptional because of her birthday.
In an indication that the focus on Kate has got out of hand, one major news group said today that they would stop using paparazzi pictures. William said more than anything he wants the harassment to stop. It's a huge issue for both boys because it's history repeating itself.
How well are you coping with all the press attention? Well, as you can see, you can tell. Are you bearing up with it quite well, though? Because it must be quite a strain with all of us after you. Well, it is, naturally.
But as with Diana, shots of Kate are a lucrative business. A snap of Kate with William would be worth around £1,000 initially and would make thousands more in resales. As for their first public kiss, that one shot could make between £25,000 to £30,000.
Of course, they're desperate for that photograph on the front page because it will sell papers. But you've got to worry about what you're doing to this girl in between.
There are rumours that Kate might celebrate tonight at this nightclub, Bougie. Our cameras won't be here, but plenty of paparazzi will be. Clarence House are trying to reduce the pressure on Kate by saying that speculation about an engagement is just that. The danger, of course, is that this sort of intense pressure will force Kate and William to make a decision before they're ready. Then these shots really would have come at a high price. Romilly Weeks, ITV News.
More than 10 days on, the Prime Minister finally spoke in public tonight about how the hanging of Saddam Hussein was handled. He said the crimes he had committed did not excuse the way his execution was carried out.
The manner of the execution of Saddam was completely wrong. But that should not blind us to the crimes he committed against his own people, including the death of hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqis, 1 million casualties in the Iran-Iraq war, and the use of chemical weapons against his own people, wiping out entire villages of people.
Well, the chaos surrounding Saddam's execution has, if anything, encouraged more killing and heightened the divisions in Iraq. Divisions not only on Baghdad's streets, but in its hospitals too. Eastern Baghdad is predominantly Shia Muslim, so is its hospital. In the west, as we saw last night on the news at 10:30, the hospital there is Sunni. Tonight, though, we have an unprecedented look inside that Shia hospital in the suburb of Kadamia, filmed at great risk by a camera crew working for ITV News. This is as good as it gets in Baghdad. A hospital for Shia Muslims, favoured by the Shia government, protected by powerful Shia militias. And yet its emergency room echoes to the cries of the wounded, victims of bomb and bullet. Power is intermittent, drugs often unavailable. It is Baghdad's best. It is a place you would hope to visit only in nightmares.
Best hospital inside Baghdad, and receiving the injured patient in form of bullet injury or bomb injury, blast injuries, Most of hospitals are sending the injured patient to our hospital.
Which tells you much about the others. Only Shia Muslims dare come here. Soldiers patrol the emergency rooms. Only an Iraqi Shia cameraman could take these pictures for us. Unlike the Sunni Muslim hospital we reported on yesterday, patients can get x-rays. There are drugs in the pharmacy. There would be more were the supply depot not in a Sunni area and now too dangerous for delivery drivers to get to. And then there's that other essential ingredient of modern medicine, electricity.
Many surgeons in our hospitals can do only 1 or 2 operations per day. Most of electrical power are shut off all of the day. So we depend on the electrical generators. Electrical generators depend on the gas. The gas is, we have very shortage.
A country that sits on 10% of the world's oil reserves, unable to fuel generators in its own hospitals. Now that's chaos. But if this tale of 2 hospitals tells us anything, it's that hatred between Sunni and Shia is now so great they won't even cooperate in humanitarian efforts to save the sick and the dying. So what hope of them ever trying together to save their shattered country? Baghdad's divided hospitals. The House of Lords has voted tonight to stop discrimination against sexual orientation in business dealings across the UK. There were protests this evening outside Parliament by a large, mainly Christian crowd. They said the law would outlaw their right to make decisions based on their faith. You may not have noticed as you fill your petrol tank, but the price of oil has fallen by more than a tenth in the first few days of this year. Today, crude oil was cheaper than any time for 19 months. Unfettered selling was how one analyst described the market. So why and when will our petrol follow suit? Our business correspondent Mark Edo looks for answers.
Here in Washington, the flowers are in full bloom. Not something you usually see when it's winter in America. It's unusually mild, and the Americans are out, not warming themselves in their homes. Demand for heating fuel is low, and that's led to a fall in crude oil prices.
We've had some very mild weather in the Northern Hemisphere, particularly in the US. There have been pictures of people sunbathing in New York recently, and the market's got very fixated on that mild weather. There's some pessimism about the general state of the global economy, and particularly the US economy.
At about $54 a barrel, traders haven't seen crude this cheap for about a year and a half.
And it's not just the warmer weather easing demand. We're in the middle of the post-Christmas lull. Americans and Europeans aren't using their cars as much. And there's no shortage of oil at the moment. Cast your mind back 6 months to the Israel-Lebanon war, which threatened to disrupt supplies. The price UK motorists paid on the forecourt shot up to around £1 a litre. So you might expect, with the price of oil at a 19-month low, there'd be a significant drop in the price you pay at the pump, right? Wrong. That's because it's not just the price of oil that drives the price of petrol. Say this is a litre of unleaded at today's price of about 87 pence. The petrol itself only amounts to 20 pence of the total. The bulk of the cost, about 48 pence, is fuel duty, courtesy of Chancellor Brown. Then there's VAT too at 13 pence, refining, delivery and retail costs making up the rest. So the actual oil itself is really a small part of the price at the pump.
So what is likely to happen to petrol prices?
A replay of 2006 in all probability. Motorists will enjoy lower prices until towards the end of February, then a slight rise as we go through March and on up into probably talking about £1 a litre in June.
Save that thought for summer. Like the rest of us, America is enjoying the unseasonal warmth and the break from fuel price rises that comes with it. Mark Edo, ITV News.
Well, let's take a quick look at the markets today. And the FTSE 100 share index ended up, but only just, closing nearly 2 points higher at 6,196. In New York, the Dow finished at 12,416, down nearly 7. And the pound is trading at almost $1.94, up a fraction of a cent. Sport and humiliation for Liverpool at Anfield tonight in the Carling Cup as Arsenal romped to victory with a stunning 6-3 win. Ali Adier latched onto a long ball in the 27th minute to open the scoring.
He might score, he's going to score.
Julio Baptista got a second with a free kick.
A shot past Duda.
Then a third from Belong.
And it's another one.
Baptista's second made it 4 for the Arsenal. He missed a penalty, but still notched his hat-trick with this shot. And if that wasn't enough, he made it 4, Arsenal's 6th. Liverpool did manage 3 themselves, this the best of them, from Stephen Jay. Still to come tonight, UTV, the reality show making monkeys of its contestants. That's after the news where you are.
Hello and welcome to the news from UTV. A man has been arrested in County Antrim in connection with a number of deaths at a Dublin hospice. It's understood the 31-year-old is being questioned about the deaths of up to 6 people at Our Lady's Hospice in Harold's Cross in 1997 and 1998. A spokesman for the hospice confirmed that the man worked in the St Patrick's unit of the home as a care assistant. A team of Garda detectives are travelling to Belfast as part of the investigation. A tribute to PUP politician David Irvine at the Oval tonight was marred when some Cliftonville fans booed and cheered during the minute's silence. Tracy McGee reports.
David Irvine was a lifelong supporter of Glentoran football team. At its East Belfast grounds, a tribute was paid before tonight's County Antrim Shield clash with Cliftonville. However, many Cliftonville fans did not observe the minute's silence. Throughout today, tributes poured in for the PUP politician who died yesterday after suddenly taking ill at the weekend.
No one can believe it. It's very, very hard to take in. And I think in the coming days people will start to realise that David was such a man, such a character, and really he touched all our lives.
Both of us worked with each other and both of us shaped each other and stuff like that. I mean, my view is that, people keep talking about what are we going to do now and what's going to happen. I mean, it's unfortunate David hasn't lived to see the thing through to the end.
UTV has learned that the UVF met today to discuss the sudden death of their main political spokesman and its impact on the peace process. Meanwhile, at the party's offices on the Lower Newtonards Road, shoppers stopped to read the floral tributes. Local people spoke of their admiration.
At the beginning, I must say, I was a wee bit apprehensive because he came from a paramilitary background, but over time I've realised that he talked a lot of sense, which in this day and age sometimes in Belfast a lot of people don't. But no, I thought he did what he could.
Well, I thought he was a great guy. He was a man for the people, and he would help if any way he could for anybody that needed the help.
David Irvine will be buried on Friday after a service at the East Belfast Mission. Tracy McGee, UTV Live, Belfast.
Sinn Féin will decide on Saturday if its special conference on policing will go ahead later this month. The party says it still has doubts over the DUP's intentions, while the DUP says the onus is on Republicans. Our political editor Ken Reid reports.
Tomorrow, the Prime Minister will make a written statement in the House of Commons outlining the future role of MI5 and in particular